Welcome to Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson. I'm a Senior Director for Old Capital Lending. We are a premier provider of debt for multifamily, although we'll go to other asset classes, but we really are a specialist in multifamily. So I'm super excited that you're here. Tonight's going to be a real special evening because we have two great speakers tonight. We've got Charles Hadsell, which we've never met, Charles, and I'm really excited to get you on here. But the real guy is Jeff Hoch, who is going to be joining us. And Nina is also, his wife is in the house. So we're going to hear from about ePropertyCare tonight. And I think it's going to be really valuable information, especially if you're new to Zoom at 8. You're going to get to see how we run our platform here. We've been doing this for almost 3 years. We've closed 10 deals within this community. So it has a lot of volume, a lot of excitement, and I'm so glad you're here to make new relationships. These guys, our speakers tonight, they work with operators, owners, and developers of multifamily and single-family rental properties for smart home, smart building implementation. So the systems are cellular based and help with water, temperature, access control, door locks, video intercoms, lighting, outlets, and audio. That is a lot. My goodness. So eCare can help put this package together for you. And tonight we're going to hear from Charles Hadsell, and we're going to hear from Jeff Hoch. And Jeff has been a regular participant in our Zoom at 8, so I'm super excited that he's here to share his product. So Charles Hadsell, he is the CEO and founder of the ePropertyCare, and he's based out of Somerville, Mass. He founded this company in 2018 and has clients that are over in 27 states. Prior to founding ePropertyCare, Charles spent 15 years in the semiconductor industry at Analog Devices and Texas Instruments. He is a multi-state landlord, so he knows what he's doing and what makes people tick. And he's married and has 4 kids. And then we're going to listen to Jeff, and he is a partner. Jeff Hoch is a CRO of the ePropertyCare, and he is based in New York. And prior to coming to ePropertyCare, Jeff worked as a commercial real estate and multifamily development company. And before entering into this commercial real estate space, Jeff had 20 years in corporate IT, where he led systems engineering teams and large data system environments. So he too is married and has 4 kids, and he is the creator of the PropTech Today. It's a podcast. And we're going to need to find out more about that, Jeff. And he also is an active contributor in the LinkedIn community. So I want to thank you guys for being so patient as we get through all of our audience here. But thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight and to share about this amazing PropTech technology with our listeners here. So Jeff, can you take it from here?
Absolutely. So Julie, first of all, thanks so much for having us. It's a real pleasure to be here today as a presenter. As you mentioned, I've been coming for quite some time now. A lot of friends in the audience. For people that are here the first time, I hope you come back in future weeks. It's been a great opportunity for me personally to learn about all facets of the industry, terrific meetup opportunities. So again, definitely follow what Julie's doing. She's a real thought leader in the industry, and really has helped so many people on the education front. So I think before we get into the presentation, let's do a little survey and kind of get a gauge of the audience. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about smart building technology or smart homes, but in the chat box, 0 if you have no experience with it, maybe a 1 if you've used it before or you have some experience with it. And we'll get a sense for who's out there, and we'll take it from there. And I'm going to get my presentation ready.
All right, I got a lot of 0s. I have a couple 1s, and that would be may be using it, and I got it too. Penny's got it too. So he's a big advocate for you and what you do. I keep seeing some zeros and ones. So, oh, Alan is a 10. We all know Alan's a 10. But yeah, so you've got quite a few people here that know nothing about this. So don't use big words and talk slowly for those of us that don't know what we're doing.
Okay. So
make sure everybody, before you go, Jeff, if everybody would look at the top right hand or right hand side, it says view. I think if we put it on speaker, there we go. Make it a speaker, then you can see Jeff and you can see the presentation. Perfect.
Can you guys see the deck?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is a presentation about our firm. As Julie mentioned, we do smart building technology for owners, operators, and developers of multifamily. We already did the team introduction, so thanks for that, Julie. We'll get into the presentation shortly. As part of it, we'll do a software demonstration so you can actually see how the technology works. We have a 3-dimensional model that was built by one of our partners, so we could actually walk you through a property with the tech. Question and answers, absolutely. This is an interactive session, so definitely think about your questions, put them into the chat, and we'll certainly try to get to everything. At the end, stay tuned. There's networking like we have every week, so love to see you there. Program notes, stay on mute during the presentation. If you want to be called on, raise hand, place questions in chat, Q&A at the end. Stay tuned for the end special offer. Have fun, learn, meet new people. Team introductions we did. Okay, let's get into it. So what does smart home mean to landlords? What is that? What is the concept around smart home technology? So when we're talking about it, we're saying using internet connected sensors and devices to monitor, control, and protect the property. And it's very simple for a homeowner to implement a smart home because most of us have Wi-Fi. But when you run into commercial buildings, and particularly apartment buildings, there wasn't always a network there. So we have solutions for that, and we could do a lot of the monitoring and management over cellular. So what is smart building technology anyway? And you may have heard about the term IoT. It's the Internet of Things. So it's taking everyday devices like a door lock, like a water valve, thermostat, and now adding sensors to it. And when you have the sensors, you can start capturing the behavior of how these devices work. Before, if you had a thermostat on your wall or a door lock, it was basically an isolated island. You had no way of managing that because it was disconnected. It wasn't part of a network environment. When you make it smart, you start enabling things like control, analytics, and you go from unmanaged to managed. You go from reactive to proactive. So now the environments that are smart, they become an extension of the building and they become experiential. Your tenant can now interact with the technology and experience it when they live there. So we always love to talk about this. And when we show this to prospects, we always usually get laughs or, yep, that happened to me. So what do we have on the screen? Your water heater is leaking. You have a tenant that's locked out in the night, running toilets, frozen pipes. And these are notorious problems that property managers are faced with and are plagued with. Oftentimes in particularly older buildings, these things are rampant and they're occurring all the time. So we pose the question, how much time, money, and stress would you have saved if you knew about a problem before it became an issue? And even better, can you manage it remotely? When we heard the intros in the top of the call, we hear a lot of people that are living in one part of the country, but investing in other parts. So the ability to do remote control of your property is becoming more and more important. Even for myself, I'm in New York, but I may invest in properties in other states, and I want the ability to manage them. This is a slide that has been quite amazing for us. We talk about it a lot of times, particularly when we're meeting people in Texas. Probably many of you have been exposed to this or remember it in February of last year. where there was a deep freeze in Texas. A lot of the buildings weren't built to a building envelope standard that would have protect from freezing, and there were pipe bursts all over the place. Again, we look at it from the perspective that if you have thermostats that are smart, if you have temperature sensors that are smart, if you have water devices that are smart, you could get ahead of problems like this. And a lot of the events that occurred, not everything, but a great deal of the events that occurred could have been prevented. And we're going to talk about how we do that in the next set of slides. In this slide, we talk about cellular technology. So when you look at smart building technology in the marketplace, there's a couple of different ways it works. Some of the systems are Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi only. Some of them are cellular, and some of them are a combination. Our systems are cellular first, but we could also rely on Wi-Fi as a backup. And we're using technology from our OEM partner, alarm.com. So basically, what you're seeing on the left side is the alarm.com cloud and the technology that's offered in that environment. And basically, what we're putting into the buildings are these small cellular gateways or cellular hubs that then connect all the units. So things like the water sensors, the thermostats, and the locks speak through that cellular gateway over the internet or over the cellular environment and speak to the alarm.com infrastructure, where you get all your monitoring and alerting. In the next series of slides, I'm going to get into some of the different aspects of the systems or components of the system, so you can understand like what's in a typical smart building package. So the first one that we talk about is access control. And access control really is at two levels. You have the building level, and then you have the individual units. So when we look at the building level, many of the larger complexes have lobbies, have pool areas, have gyms, garages, common areas, co-work spaces, and you need the access control systems to protect the common areas. The next portion of access control is at the unit level. So every individual tenant there has their own entry, their own door. And the way our systems work is we make that frictionless and seamless. So when you're going to the entry of the building, you could use a PIN number, you could use a key fob, you could use your cell phone, or a number of other methods in combination to get into the building. The elegance of this is the same code that you type at the front door is the code that you could use at your unit. And the reason why that's important is now as a property owner or manager, you have auditability as far as who's coming and going from the property. So you're not using one common code to get in. You're not dealing with keys and all the things that go alongside of that. And when we get a little further into it, and I'll have Charles speak a little bit, we'll talk about all the different ways that this can save you money. Next part of our system is water protection, and this is a big one. This kind of correlates to the slide I showed around the Texas freeze up. So in our technology stack, we have a smart water valve, and this is a really sophisticated piece of equipment. But basically what it does for a living is look at flow rates and durations. So this is an inline device. It gets cut into your plumbing, could be at the water main, the building risers, or at the units. But what we look for is water traversing this valve, and it uses a technology like a vortex to have water spinning through. By using this technology and detecting things like running toilets, burst pipes, slab leaks, things that may or may not be instantly apparent, you're able to stay ahead of problems. And what we love about this device is, besides the fact that it could detect a leak in an emergency situation, it could shut off. Many, many insurance carriers are looking at this as a great benefit. We actually have a couple of programs going on around the country where homeowners are even being encouraged to put this into their personal properties, but a great amount of benefit to be able to detect problems and take corrective action automatically. Next part of a smart system and our system is HVAC. So here what we're talking about is really two main parts. It's thermostats and temperature sensors. The smart thermostats are a amazing bit of technology. So besides the fact of allowing the tenant to control their heating and cooling, you're able to set policies. And why are policies important? So you could say, I want to have a low range and I want to have a high range. So you don't have someone setting your heat to 90 degrees or setting your air to 60 degrees, which could be wasting tons of energy. The other thing that many property managers are leaning into is the ability to do policy setting around the disposition of vacant versus occupied. So again, many times when we're on calls with our clients or prospects, we ask, have you ever walked into a unit where you could hang meat or it feels like you're going to a tropical island? And we usually get a lot of laughs on that, but the reality is every single one of them has encountered it at some time or another. The maintenance goes in, they're setting up a unit or they're turning it over, they're painting or carpeting or renovating. Someone sets the air conditioning for 60 degrees and it stays there for 3 months. Versus having a system that has policies set, has particular set points considered, and then will take corrective action if it finds something that's out of whack. Last part of the system that's really core to us is the notion of video surveillance. So as you can imagine, particularly in larger campuses, bigger properties, the needs for having eyes around the property for insurance reasons, for vandalism, for client safety, for looking at the parking lots, for looking at the gyms, the pools. This is a great way to protect the property. And this solution that we offer is integrated into our other suite of technology. So besides looking at your locks and thermostats and other access control points, you could also monitor the property with video surveillance and use recorders to roll back and look at times in the past. So Charles, let me turn over to you for a bit on this. I'll grab a drink of water. Why don't you take the audience through some of the impacts on NOI that we have on this chart, and I'll come back in a second.
Yeah, sure. So Julianne, thanks for having me on the call here. Great audience you have here, very engaging. NOI is what's going to drive a lot of the decision-making process on implementing this technology. We're all looking to increase returns, increase spreads, reduce risk. That's really what this technology can do for you and your property. So the first is like water and sewer reduction. Like you catch like one or two running toilets in your property, in places where you pay for water, especially, detect some leaks that could cause like damage. Those all have an impact on your repairs and maintenance budgets, as well as on your utilities budgets. Jeff mentioned earlier, a lot of insurance carriers are now embracing this technology as a way to reduce premium, because water loss is their second biggest cause of loss, next to like wind and hail. So this is perfect. A lot of these water damage, non-flood or hurricane weather damage is very preventable, especially with some of this temperature monitoring technology. So we're seeing some clients get 10-15% insurance reductions by having electronic water protection in their properties. Imagine taking 10% off of your insurance bill in your large multifamily. That's going to have a significant impact on your NOI. HVAC expense reductions. We utilize Energy Star thermostats, which are proven to reduce energy consumption, 16 to 23%. So that has a big impact on the tenant's pocketbook if they are paying for utilities, or your pocketbook if you are including your heat or electricity in your rental expenses. Jeff already talked about vacant units. This is a huge savings area, especially if you have like thousands and thousands of properties. At any given time, you'll have vacancies, and most likely those vacancies are set on schedules that the tenants were using when they were occupied that are no longer valid. So you're paying for heat or air conditioning that you no longer need. And in a lot of cases, that's made worse by maintenance people coming through and setting the heat or the AC at different levels for the painter, for the carpet person, or for the cleaning service. Locksmiths. So imagine not having to pay a locksmith to rekey or recore locks. You could do that all digitally. And I'll show you an example of how we could do this in one of our deployments here in the Boston area. But literally, keys are just a thing as like an emergency fail safe for your property manager, not for the tenants to like exchange and drop off and copy and lose. Because now you can push a button on your phone, and literally open the door for someone if they got locked out. Leasing agents, unintended showings. These are becoming particularly popular now in like the COVID era. Why have someone take me through an apartment complex if I could do it myself? So our technology enables you to kind of reduce costs on leasing agents by being able to do self showings and self guided tours. So that could have a significant expense if you're paying for your full time salaries to have people to show properties for you. So those are on the cost saving side, but I think the more the equally interesting one is on the revenue side, because a lot of owners are now charging premiums on their rent for having smart building technology enabled. So now so imagine getting a 5-10% rent increase just by having this technology deployed. We have some case studies that we'll show later where one owner is charging $72 higher rent because he could have this technology in his properties in Florida, this Class A type of system. So this is becoming increasingly popular because if you could charge $25, $50 more rent, that covers all the costs and gives you a great return on your capital for deploying it into your project. So in summation, you could raise revenues and reduce costs, and it has a big impact on NOI, which is what drives a lot of our investment decisions.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through a number of these slides a little bit quicker, but we have different case studies that show the effect of the technology and how they boost NOI. So like here you see the punchline on the bottom, 100K investment leads to a 200K NOI increase, which appreciates the value of the asset by 800,000 over the whole period. Here's a example that we talk about often. This is a large real estate investment trust called Invitation Homes. What they decided to do was implement the smart building technology and actually put a fee into their fee schedule of around $25 per unit per month. And they make that an opt-in for the tenant. Some properties decide to do it that way, others roll it out across the board. This is the example that Charles was mentioning a few moments ago. And this is one of the clients that we're working with where they typically buy Class A properties. They've made a commitment to roll this out across their portfolio, and they're really leaning into the smart building technology. So besides even implementing the stuff that we offer, they're looking at things like electric vehicle charging, solar, and other property amenities that kind of fall under the umbrella of smart. In their underwriting and in their offering memorandums, they're telling their investors, we're going to increase rent, in this case, by $72 per unit per month. Also, for your benefit, these are guys that buy properties that are typically 200 to 400 units. So you can imagine the multiplier at that scale if you're going to get $72 more on each unit. We talked about this a little bit before. It's the notion of occupied unit savings. How do you cope with utilities and water monitoring and the benefits that you could get through having the technology? Per turn savings. So instead of having to go through rekeying and recoring, also having units wasting energy, you have great benefits by implementing the technology. And we, again, have some modeling around that. The reason why we show the spreadsheets in a general sense, and anyone that's interested in the deck, we could send it to them, is that every property has its own complexion. It has its own characteristics. It has its own way of operating. So we have established a lot of working models that you could use yourself on your property and figure out how many turns do you do per year, how many rekeying events do you have, how many lost keys do you have, how many plumbing events do you have, and you could start using these type of models to help you figure out the effect that you would have in your own individual property. The good news is every single property can benefit by having the technology. It just varies by property. Asset protection. So again, we covered this a drop before, how you could reduce your insurance expenses, how you can improve your water and sewer expenses, repairs and maintenance, and detecting HVAC problems in real time. We talk about this a lot when we meet with prospects. isn't it true that the HVAC is going to break on Friday night when it's 100 degrees out and you have to do an emergency call? Wouldn't it be a lot different if you had predictive analytics around how the systems were behaving and be able to proactively call for maintenance instead of wait for a failure? At this point, we'll do a quick demonstration of the software. I'll stop sharing. So basically, it's great to talk about all of this. It's much more exciting to see it in action. So we'll turn over to Charles. He's going to bring up some of our software systems, and you'll be able to see it in real time.
All right. So this is one of our clients in Boston that has this technology deployed to several of their multifamily buildings. So in the main login screen here in this dropdown, they have 3 of their projects: Station Lofts, Port Landing, and Frost Terrace. And from this, they can navigate now to the occupied group, which is where all the residents live. They could go to the vacant group, where all the mechanical and back office doors are, or they could go to the access control and video group that controls all the building doors and the video system. So we'll start in the occupied group. So this is literally 40 units that are online right now, and this is the status of every single lock in the system. So if I were a property manager and the resident was said, "Hey, I left my property and I forgot to lock the door," you could literally click on the property here. You see the history of all the accesses. So this gives you that traceability of ins and outs in the property. You could click on the lock and say lock door. I'm not going to do that because that's literally someone's home, and not everyone would have this level of access. But I just want to kind of give you experientially, what you could do from a computer or from a phone, anywhere in the world, for controlling and monitoring your buildings. So if I go to the vacant group, this has all the mechanical rooms. So this has the fire closets, the mech rooms, the community rooms. But one thing you'll notice there, our system caught an issue at one of the properties. So this has the water meter, fire pump, water heater room. So I could unlock any of these doors if we want to, but we have our water solution in this. And we reported to the property manager recently that there is an unexpected low flow event here in this one building. So the property manager is now doing a study, of all the faucets and the tubs to figure out where is this water flow coming from, because this would normally never get caught, until it was causing damage. So we could also see that this building consumed 100 gallons of water today. So we get a reading of the water consumption and when there's unexpected flow rates. So let me shift over to the access control. So this building has 4 storefront doors. So again, with a system, I could buzz open any of these doors to let someone into the building. And in this particular case, we have 32 cameras deployed on the indoor and outdoor of the property. So literally, you could pull up here a live video feeds of all the units and all the hallways and common areas of this property, or you could even go into the history and say, I want to view footage from, let's say, January 4th. So what was going on in these video feeds on January 4? A tenant reported an issue. So you can see here now, this is 1-4. So typically for video systems, they have a little DVR in some basement room or mechanical room where you got to boot up a 10-year-old PC and go and review footage manually. With our system, you can do this all remotely from your computer or your phone. So again, very suited for people that own properties in different states than where they live. So let me do a final test demo of creating a code for someone. So our system integrates with major property management software systems. So if you utilize Yardi, Entrata, RealPage, Resman, Appfolio, we tie in with those systems so that when you move someone in via those systems, it automatically creates the code for the tenant, automatically creates an app login for them, and obviously and does the opposite when you move a tenant out. So you don't have to manually do any of this stuff. It all happens automatically and very seamless, and is a great resident experience. But if I needed to create a code, and this is one of the powers, of this, we had a call today with Kimra, and she's like, "This is what I've been looking for, just this type of solution for 2.5 years. I think I found it." So now I could click on users here, and I could go add a user. So we'll go, my name, Charles Hadsell. I'll be a resident. So I could enter my email address here, and this would send me an automated email with instructions for how to enter and exit the building if I wanted to. I could choose, do I have access all times? Do I have a restricted schedule, like only where the code only works on certain days and times? Or do I have a code that expires on a certain date and time? So maintenance person's doing a project for a week. After a week, you want that code to be dead in the lock. So you could choose which one makes sense for the access level. And then I can set by location. So I could say, give me access to 85001. And I'll click save. And that code will literally work in that unit door in about 5 minutes. So that's how like real time it is. I'm not having to go to the building. I'm not having to like punch in keys and codes in the lock. I'm sending this over the cell network, and I'm basically real time enabling these codes and loading them into the lock. Obviously, I'm going to delete this code because this is not this is someone's unit, but that kind of shows you how like easy it is to like deploy a code, and do it at like an enterprise level. So the same system applies on the thermostat side. So I'll quickly show you another example of a 47 unit building that utilizes our technology. So what's cool about this is, again, for the story that Jeff shared, this owner is actually including heat in his rent. So he was saying that someone moved from Puerto Rico and they had literally the heat set at like 80 degrees. So he's like, this is obviously unacceptable. So in the system here, you could create these enterprise energy rules. And in this case, I could say, whoops. Of course, the first rule of demos is I'll create a new template. And this is where I could say the max I could run the heat is 77 degrees. The min I could run the AC is 65 degrees. If it ever goes above 70% humidity, turn on the AC. So I don't have so for all the properties down the south, I heard a lot of people that invest in the south, humidity is a big problem. That leads to mold, leads to a lot of bad things. So now I could say the maximum humidity allowed is 70%. Otherwise, it'll kick on the AC. I could say I want to apply this to certain locations, or I want to apply it to all locations in the portfolio. So again, it gives you the ability to kind of manage things at the enterprise level and easily flip between different property groups that might be in your portfolio. So any questions? So let me pause there for questions. Any questions that people want to throw out or put out in the chat?
Yeah, Charles, I see that there are a couple of questions that are here. So one of the questions from Micey Lou was, how often do these products have to get replaced?
Yeah, good question. So things like locks, those could take like a big beating, so generally, like, I'd say the life cycle to budget for like a thing like a lock is probably 5 to 7 years, for electronic lock, because it'll get beat up, wear and tear, and so forth. For things like the thermostats, the hubs, those are probably more 10-year plus type of life cycles. So it all depends on, like, is it something that the tenants like you beat up every day, or is it something that kind of sits in the background like a sensor, like our water sensor right here? This could really literally sit there on the same battery for 10 years. So you wouldn't have to like worry about changing batteries for probably longer than you'll own the property if you like to kind of sell every 5 years.
Super. We have a question from Chris to sell. What is the cost? So I do have a slide in the presentation that will show the complement of all the hardware. But what we've started doing over the last several months is representing the technology in packages. So to get a cellular hub, a lock, and a thermostat, sub $500. And then as you get into more advanced and fully featured packages, I would say about 1,100. And we could explain some of the variability and why the numbers change, but it's really the basic versus more advanced pieces that drive the cost. Charles, there's a question from Chris. What type of resistance do you get from tenants, and how do you reassure them?
And so first, before I go to that question, on the cost side, that's it for like a brand new system. But in a lot of cases, you're going to be paying, $100 for a lock, $50 for a thermostat anyway. So if you're doing like a full renovation in a property, that $500 is now like a couple $100 delta between the dumb system and the smart system. So it's actually a much smaller spread than the $500 that Jeff was communicating. Because if you're going to be replacing stuff anyway, there's a cost associated with that. And we did a little analysis of Schlage like locks and Honeywell thermostats. It was like a $200-ish delta. So it's not as big as you think. Resistance from tenants. So a lot of tenants love this because it's actually a lot more secure for them than keys floating around with various maintenance people. Because tenants now know that there's a trusted source for who came in and out of their property, and there's a record of it that's not changeable. So it gives them a lot more reassurance that, hey, some like handyman guy is not floating around there with a key that could come into the property, late at night. Of course, you might have some like Luddite tenants that that don't like technology. So in that case, you could literally give them a key and say, hey, you're the only one that in the whole building is getting a key, but here's a key if you don't want to use any of the smart building tech. So a lot of it is just being transparent. They have app access to the app. You could also design the system implementation to give no people access to the lock other than through work orders. So it kind of gives you a way to kind of dial in how you operate it based on like the response from your tenants and the practices like in your area.
Charles, we have a question from Candace Crawford. How sensitive to power surges is the technology?
So I'd say not very sensitive. Well, it's more of like power drops. So actually, we have some systems deployed in like upstate New York, and the system actually told the contractor that you have an issue with your power because it was triggering power faults. Because like the thermostats like this, they operate off of batteries, but they also could take in a C wire from your HVAC system. So it actually caught for the owner that there is a power issue on his power grid where voltage was sagging. So the things like the hubs, these have obviously they have the power supplies that are just standard power supplies that will protect against some surges, but this also has battery backup in it. So there's a question there about what happens if there's a power outage. Well, power outage, all the Wi-Fi stuff goes out. This thing stays online for 24 hours. And things like locks, those have battery power. So you can still literally control locks and other things, even if the whole grid's like offline, in your area. And in some cases, we install like a little UPS, like on like a water shutoff valve, so that if the power is out for a few hours, I can literally go in and still close the water valve. That's one of the things that one of our insurance carrier partners has embraced for like 10,000 of their customers is like, hey, if you do this, you're going to get 10% off of your policy premium.
There's a question that we have from Will Hahn. The question is, do we see this heavily used in A and B class properties, or does it reach out to value add and C class as well?
I think there's different functions for different property classes. So I'd say like an A, B class, it's an amenity. It's like, hey, I could charge higher rent, and then all the other savings is kind of like a cherry on the top. But for Class C projects, we're seeing it more as an asset protection play in places where you might be including utilities in rent, or places where the tenants are not taking care of water and you're bearing the water cost. So it does have, different parts of the system have different applications for different property classes, but there's a value in it for any property class. But for a lot of the investors, B, C, A, B, it's easy to justify a rent increase, and that sells the system for them because like, hey, I could pass this off to my tenants in higher rent or in a fee. For those that have a problem like a water problem or HVAC problem, it could really help save you a lot of money over the long run by catching these things and preventing tenants from abusing it.
Okay, guys, I'm going to jump back into the presentation real quick. So we do have a 3D model of the technology. This is available at ePropertyCare.com. I won't go into it in the interest of time, but what I want to point out to you is when you drive the model, you'll see some of these blue hyperlinks. Click on them, and there's videos that we prepared that tell you about each of the components, so you could learn about each at your own leisure, and that's on our homepage. Pitfalls to avoid when choosing a solution. You may find technology that's a point solution. It's only a thermostat, or it's only a door lock. It's not a comprehensive solution. It doesn't integrate well with the common property management systems as we described. It may require a big investment in Wi-Fi. So we don't have that requirement because we rely on cellular. The complexity to use, learn, or train on it. The vendor's experience with real estate and the tech, number two, and then they don't offer a ongoing service to support the technology. So it forces the landlord to take a lot of responsibility onto their side. This is a slide, and we'll send this out to you. These are the integrations that we offer. quite a large list, as you could see, because a lot of companies have investments in this. You can't change that. If now you want to implement smart, you have to work alongside of it. So we have great coverage there. What is smart building as a service? Really, the major takeaway from this is fully managed. So if you need the support to run the system after you put it in, we've built the infrastructure to be able to do that. We have offshore teams, we have technology teams that can assist your teams, work alongside your property managers, and it's a staff augmentation play. It is a fee-based service, but basically, if you go into the technology and you have hundreds of units, you want to make sure you're running the technology properly. And number two, you want to make sure you're responding to alerts that are found in the system. So the goal of the smart building as a service that we offer is to maximize the system value to the owner. Industry trends to be aware of, we'll go through it quickly. 30% of prospective tenants won't rent if they can't tour on their own schedule. So that's a conversation about unattended showings. 52% of millennials want access to their home with a PIN code or app. And 90% of commercial real estate insurance claims involve water damage in the residential realty world. There's a trend towards more people opting out of home ownership, and that's not the American dream anymore. It's mobility, it's flexibility. So if you're going to live in an apartment, darn well make it a nice smart apartment with a lot of creature comforts. And then there's a very large trend in the industry from hospitality being a rental world to a hospitality aligned model. So offering the technologies allows operators to get closer to that hospitality mindset. I'm going to skip this. There was some questions about hardware. So as you can imagine, we have pretty comprehensive suite of technology. The left side of the screen is like more of the advanced packages that we talked about with color hubs and touchscreen locks and thermostats. Then we have more basic offerings. The piece you see in the center is like the lobby glass and entry door controllers, the video cameras, the water valves, and the water sensors. So quite a wide array of products to fit every application you could think of. This one you guys want to jot down. So we do have a discount code because you stuck it out listening to us for the last 20, 30 minutes. If you use EPC webinar, $100 off if you'd like to try it on one of your units. There's a pilot bundle with a hub, a lock, a thermostat, and a water sensor. A great opportunity to get your hands on the technology. Love for you to try it. So again, EPC webinar to get that bundle offer. And a couple of quick case studies if we have time. If not, that's fine too.
Can we do it in 2 minutes?
2 minutes or less. Charles.
Okay, 2 minutes or less. Let's do it.
Take a couple of them and we'll stop.
All right. This is the property I was actually showing you, 40 units. It was a new construction project, included like the cameras, the locks, the water flow meters, butterfly intercoms, and integrated into the Yardi system for the landlord. Next slide, Jeff. This is a 20-unit project. This was a retrofit where we replaced all the cameras with our cameras, and we added smart locks and access control for the building door. Again, this one tied into a Yardi system for the owner. This is a 31-unit project where they put the water valve on every single unit because they wanted the owners paying for water in this case, and they want to know exactly which unit has a water problem. So we implemented this in every single unit of this new construction project. This is a new development, 57 units across 3 buildings.
I need to come back here with my bags and lock the Jeep.
Hold on. Let's get them.
Fine, just
Hold on. Let me.
This one right here is a revitalized mill project. So 47 locks, 47 this is the thermostat one that I was showing you. So this is actually next door to the 31-unit water protection one. So once the owner saw what we were doing in the building, they wanted to apply some of the technology next door to them. And we just won a 111-unit right down the street from this one. So once you kind of get this technology in, it kind of spreads around to like nearby properties. So that's kind of what we've seen in our experience.
Yeah, the last thing I'll point out real quick to you, you saw in a couple of projects there, the notion of adaptive reuse. So we have a developer that we do a lot of work with, where they're taking old buildings, mills, schools, revitalizing them, and as part of the revitalization, bringing the technology along. So that's really, really exciting use case. So you take something very, very old and make it very, very new. So that's it from us. Thanks so much for listening. A lot of information we try to cram in, but hopefully you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Love to work with anybody.
Oh my God, that was amazing. Amazing product, amazing presentation. I cannot tell you how thankful I am that, number one, all of those products are in one place. It's amazing. You don't have to go to all the different companies, which is terrific. So that's wonderful. I'm so excited. I can't sit still. You guys made it seem like it was, oh, it's okay. No, this is super exciting stuff. You guys, all of you in the audience need to really consider this. You know, there was a question, are we doing this only in A and B, not C's? But if you look at some of these C class properties, these people have the nicest phones. They want to have all the updated technology. So don't be thinking this is not of interest to them. They like this. So don't be afraid of it. I just am super excited. Jeff, I'm just so grateful that you are here and presenting this. It's so valuable to our audience.
Thanks so much. And I think the major takeaway is on any single property, we can tailor a solution that makes sense to the business plan and really deliver value on an asset protection play and on an amenity play. So happy to engage on anything, and always available on LinkedIn and all the channels. We have our contact information here, but you need a budgetary number for any project, shoot us an email. Absolutely.
You did put the information in the chat. I saw Charles, but I didn't see Jeff. I didn't see yours. So make sure, maybe you put that in early. We do want to get to our networking. So Chris, I want to get to your question. So can we do that quickly?
Yeah, I just wanted to just say that this would have saved me a lot of a headache if we had this. We had a tenant one time that left her key inside. She tried getting in the window on top of a bucket. She fell and tried to sue us. So if that's not evidence enough that something like this would be really helpful, you know.
Amazing. That is a great story. Unfortunate story, but yeah. Moses, what do you got?
Hey, Julie, this might be down your path, if anything. Do you see, does the lender, from the lender side, do you look at any of this as a more secure asset from an underwriter perspective? I know how we value it, but I wanted to see, like, on a smaller scale of residential, we look at, you know, solar and what's not as added value. But do you see this as a more secure asset when it has the bells and whistles?
Yeah, I would tell you this, that from a crime standpoint, always having the security cameras and lights, that's always something that's of value. In terms of NOI and considering, you know, we're going to lend more, I would say it's in the very beginning stages. I don't think that from a lending standpoint, it's there yet, but you can see it from an insurance for sure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, you guys. I want to thank Jeff and Charles. That was amazing. I got to tell you, it's the best of 2022.
Well, it was a high bar, so we didn't want to disappoint.
No, truly amazing. So I thank you. And